he said, preacher, my daddy went there in 1890, or my granddaddy. And he said, my dad was born there in the late 1800s. And he said, my daddy told me, I never heard your granddaddy pray. Now get a hold of this. I never heard your granddaddy pray for less than thousands. Than thousands. Than thousands. He said every time he prayed, it was, Lord, save thousands. And he is dealing with headhunters. And he's believing God to save thousands. And we live in a country that's civilized to the hilt, and we don't even pray for hundreds. And he was praying for thousands to be saved. And he said, my granddaddy was out in the yard digging a well. You had to hand dig them. And the water was not real deep, maybe 20 feet. And he was digging this well. He was down around 14 feet. He said, my daddy told me. And he said he was putting dirt in a bucket and then throwing a rope up on it, had a rope up on top tied to it. And he'd climb up a ladder and pull that dirt up and put it out. Then he'd get a drink of water or something and go back down and dig a lot of dirt and start hauling it out by buckets. And he said one day he came up out of the well to get a drink, and three little ponies, what we would call Shetlands, little tiny horses, came out of the jungle, and headhunters were following them. Three headhunters were following these little ponies. And they came and they knelt down at the feet of my daddy. These little ponies dropped down at my daddy's feet. And these headhunters told my granddaddy these words. I get chills when I tell this, because when they said, we have a man in our tribe who has, get this now, I'll tell you, this is a classic, who has a book that says, pure as the air. It's as pure as the air. And he said, he told us there was a man whose skin was white, which they had never seen. It's white as the clouds, and the book is as pure as the air. And he said the Great Spirit told him, I'm going to touch these three little horses, and they're going to take you to that man. They said, sir, we have walked 3 weeks through jungles we never have been in our life. We have circled other headhunter tribes who hunt us while we hunt them to eat. And said, we have come here, and said, these little ponies are supposed to lead us to you. And on the strength of that story, he kissed his wife goodbye and his little boy and followed them into the jungle and walked 3 weeks behind these little ponies anointed by God to this village. And he started preaching, and 1,000 natives got saved out of their head hunting. 1,000. Now, I said, where does your daddy live? He said, my daddy is in San Bernardino, California. He was driven out of Burma with the communist purge, and said he lives in San Bernardino, California. This was in the 60s. So I immediately went to San Bernardino, California from Denver, Colorado. And I sat down and I said, tell me more. Tell me more. And the day I was there, he got a delivery, a special delivery, and he opened it up and he said, look here, preacher. And he showed me the indigenous church in Burma, and there were 1,000 people on the bank waiting baptism. And there were people, I forget how many baptizers out in the water, but it was like maybe 25 or 30 baptizing people, and they're just mowing this line down. And he said, preacher, between my daddy and my granddaddy, 30,000 headhunters came to Christ. 30,000. Because a man prayed for thousands. Oh, that we could get a hold of that and pray for thousands to be saved.